This is a type of jellyfish known as a bay nettle. For a long time, these were assumed to be Atlantic sea nettles, another species of jellyfish to which they are closely related. However, in 2017, a groundbreaking study revealed that they are actually two different species. Scientists realized that the sea nettles living in brackish water estuaries are actually different enough to be considered a separate species. The sea nettles are about twice as wide at the top portion called the bell. They also have more tentacles than the bay nettles. The sea nettles average about 40, while these bay nettles average about 24. The bay nettles also have longer oral arms. Those are the long, frilly things in the middle. They help bring food into the jellyfish's mouth, which is in the middle, on the underside of the bell. The tentacles are on the outside, and they contain cells used for stinging. Each tentacle has many tiny structures, called nematocysts, that essentially act like a microscopic harpoon. And a toxic harpoon at that, as they release a toxin that can kill or immobilize their tiny prey. Luckily, the toxin is not strong enough to kill people, but it is strong enough to be very painful when stung. So these jellyfish can negatively impact recreational swimming in the Chesapeake Bay. They are also the bane of many watermen who encounter them when pulling up crab pots. But the point of the stinging tentacles isn't to bother people. It's to help this gelatinous carnivore catch food. They primarily eat plankton, comb jellies, and very small crustaceans. Comb jellies are wild-looking little creatures which we will look at in future videos. Despite their small size, comb jellies like the sea walnut can actually be harmful to fish populations because they eat so much plankton. But these bay nettles eat the comb jellies, which in turn helps the fish population. So these jellyfish are an important part of the ecosystem. They are the most common jellyfish in Baltimore's inner harbor. When their numbers peak in the late summer or fall, you might find a whole bunch of them. The next type of jellyfish you can find in the inner harbor is the moon jelly. Moon jellies actually aren't one species, but an entire genus containing dozens of species. However, all the species are so similar in appearance that you can't really tell which is which unless you look at their DNA. Unlike the bay nettles, which primarily live in estuaries along the western Atlantic coast in the northern hemisphere, moon jellies can be found all over the world. They live in the Atlantic, Pacific, Indian, and even Arctic oceans. They are most common in temperate waters. Their most preferred water temperature is between 48 and 66 degrees Fahrenheit, so here in Baltimore you are less likely to see them during the warmer months. As you can see, their tentacles are a lot shorter than most jellyfish. However, they do have a lot of them. Unlike the bay nettles, their sting is not considered painful. In fact, moon jellies are one of the animals that you can touch with your hands at the National Aquarium in the Living Seashore exhibit. The moon jellies are somewhat bigger than the bay nettles. The average bay nettle is a little more than 2 inches wide at the bell, with some of the biggest ones being more than 8 inches. The moon jellies, on the other hand, are often more than 10 inches wide, with the biggest more than 16 inches. Like most jellyfish, moon jellies are carnivores. They mostly eat plankton. One of the moon jelly's defining physical characteristics is those 4 roundish things in the middle. Those are actually its gonads, or reproductive organs. They are actually located under the bell, but since the jellyfish is translucent, you can see them. Jellyfish reproduction is extremely weird. Moon jellies reproduce when the males release sperm cells into the water and the females ingest them. The eggs develop in the female's oral arms. The female releases them into the water when they reach the larval planula stage. That makes the moon jellies unusual. In most other species of jellyfish, the female just releases unfertilized eggs into the water. At this stage they are extremely small and flat, but they have tiny hairs called cilia that they can move in order to push themselves through the water. They swim downwards and settle on a hard surface at the bottom. There they transform into the polyp stage. During this stage they still look nothing like jellyfish. They are only a few millimeters wide, their bottom is attached to a hard surface, and their top is a tiny mouth surrounded by tentacles. They can remain in this stage for years. Eventually, the polyp will asexually reproduce by spontaneously separating its body into multiple segments, which then detach from each other. Those now free-floating segments then grow into the medusa stage, which is the stage in which jellyfish actually look like jellyfish. So, these guys certainly have an interesting life cycle, that's for sure. Last but not least, we have the Atlantic lion's mane jellyfish. They are named after their very long, vaguely hair-like tentacles. You may have heard of this jellyfish's close relative, called simply the lion's mane jelly, which is actually one of the biggest jellyfish in the entire world. In the biggest members of that species, the bell can be more than 6 feet wide, but this species right here is actually quite small. The bell is only about 2 inches wide. The bell is divided into 8 lobes. These jellyfish prefer colder water, so in the inner harbour you may even see them in the winter time. Their sting is only moderately painful, and they are usually observed as being solitary rather than in large groups.